Okay, I was assuming that's a yes. All right, so let's get started now properly. So we'll be talking about how to build with no code. And all right, so let's talk about what no code is. No code is a software design system that allows non-technical people to build software without writing code. Think of any kind of complex application right now that is built with code, and then think of you being able to build it without writing code. That's the power that no code gives to non-technical people. By non-technical people, I mean people who don't know how to write code. That's regular people that are not developers, that are not programmers. So no code gives them the ability to be able to create apps, to create websites without writing code. Now that is no code. And then there is low code, which is slightly different from no code, right? Low code is a combination of some code and no code, right? It involves maybe some HTML or CSS or even JavaScript in order to achieve something. But that is low code, right? But today we're just going to be looking at no code and how you can build software without writing code. So no code also involves some drag and drop features where a user can simply move like a button from an interface to a canvas where users can then click and then do something, right? So it's pretty much easier to use than writing code. And then it also relies heavily on logic and conditionals. So you'll be using a lot of if this, then that statement. So if a user is logged out, for example, an action should be taken. Or if a user has signed in, these are the only elements they should be able to see, or these are the things that they should be able to do, right? So are you with me? I just want to be sure that I'm not talking to myself.
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So there are several tools in the no-code space, several tools that you can use to build software. I must say that it is even sort of overwhelming when you think about it, because all these tools can do similar things, but they have different capabilities. So right here down below are some of those tools. I got this from the internet, a list of tools that I can categorize as no code. So you have CAD. CAD is just at the bottom here. You have CAD. CAD is mostly used for building landing pages, one-page landing pages. You have Webflow. Webflow is also popular for building websites. It's popular among designers for building websites. You have Airtable. Airtable is like Microsoft Excel, but with extra capabilities. Where you can store data. It can be a database for storing, texts, objects, or images or files, right? Excel can't store files. Excel can't really store videos. It can store just maybe text and images, but Webflow can do a lot more than that. Airtable can do a lot more than that, sorry. You have Zapier, and so on and so forth. So different no-code tools can be used to achieve different kind of objectives. So it depends. Okay. So it depends on what you want to achieve. It depends on what you want to build. That really determines which no-code tool you're going to go with. Can this person mute their mic, please?
Yeah, hi. So we can't actually see your screen. So we don't know what you're sharing.
Oh, wow. Okay, let me check that out.
No,
Leave him now. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Leave him. Why you
Okay, now we can.
Yes, now it's listening.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, so this just down below are a list of some no-code tools that are pretty popular in the space. Some more popular than others, but they all depend on what you eventually use to build your project. Really depends on the features and all the kinds of things that you want users to be able to do. But just for this session, we're going to be talking about Bubble among all of these other no-code tools. But the basic principle is the tool you choose really depends on the kind of features you want to create, right? So here is a table that displays different no-code tools and features that you need to consider if you want to build an app, right? So for example, if you want to build an app with a login feature, you want users to be able to log in with their email address or with a username and a password. Those kind of apps are like marketplaces, like social networks. For real life examples, you can think of something like an Airbnb or Facebook. Those tools, those kind of apps are best built with, what we have on the extreme right. You have ShareTribe. ShareTribe is an app that is best for marketplaces. If you want to connect two sides of, two types of users, maybe buyers and sellers, you would use ShareTribe for that. That's the best app for that. But if you don't want to use ShareTribe, there is Bubble, best for building web apps that are, market. That's an app that is downloadable on the App Store or Play Store. You use Adalo, right? If your app is going to involve some kind of payments where one user is paying another user, or a user is paying for some items, for example, an e-commerce site like Jumia or Amazon or AliExpress, those are e-commerce websites, or something like Netflix, right? Or a game app or a social network or marketplace. These are examples of those. Candix, Uber. These apps are built also with Bubble. It's possible to build them for apps that are for gaming. So you want to build a game, right, without writing code. You use Buildbox for that. Webflow, like I said, is best for designers who want to build like an e-commerce website, for example. You can use Webflow for that. Then you have, if there's a feature where people need to follow each other, or people can, make friends, like a social network app, for example, like Twitter or Instagram. Bubble 2 can do that as well. And then you have another app called, or another tool called Circle, which also allows you to create like a marketplace. For example, if a seller or a buyer, wants to buy something, wants to buy an item on the marketplace, and they need to talk to the seller, right? You need to have a chat feature. Also, like in a social network platform, like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, messaging or chats is also involved as well, right? And the apps that can do that again are Bubble, Adalo, and Glide, right? So you would realize that in all of these use cases, you can see Bubble is common in almost every instance of it, which basically tells you how powerful Bubble's engine is. Bubble can create a lot of complex applications that other no-code tools cannot do. Now, it's not to say that those no-code tools are not good enough, but they just don't have the capability to create the user experience that you want. With Webflow, for example, you can build a job board, right? But you would need to connect it with various other tools maybe like backendless and Zapier and some other things in order for it to function. But Bubble has the ability to do everything on one single platform without you having to connect it with several other tools, using APIs and all that. Fine, you can actually connect, for example, Bubble and Webflow. There are use cases where a builder can decide to use Webflow for their front end and use Bubble for their back end, right? For example, maybe the home page is built with Webflow, and then they have the login feature and all of those other things powered by Bubble, right? But then, this is just an overview of some of those things that you can build with Bubble and features as well that you need to think about when you want to build something. Okay, something I need to mention here now is something that really depends, or that really have to leave the meeting in 10 minutes, and then we'll join back again. But I'll just keep going. So one of the key things that determine whether you're going to use a tool like Bubble or Adalo depends on the type of platform that you want to create. So if you are creating a web-based platform where users can access the platform you want to build, they can access it on their mobile devices through a web browser or through a browser on their computer, right? Basically through a browser, the best tool to use will be Bubble. But if you want to build something that's mobile native, that people would need to download from the App Store or from the Play Store in order to use Bubble, fine, Bubble can do that, right? Because there are some plugins that you can use in order to create that possibility. However, the best thing you would do is to use something like Glide or Adalo, right? Those apps are best suited for creating apps that are mobile native, right? So it really depends on the platform you want to build on, you want to build for, and also the features. Okay, so what are the use cases for no code? I mean, what are the instances for which you should go for no code? I mean, as against using traditional coding, as against hiring a developer, right? Best for building with no code. The first is if you want to build an MVP quickly. Now, if you're good, like this, this meme I got from the Bubble page, where you have an app idea, you create a list of features you want for your MVP. By the way, an MVP is a minimum viable product. So if you have an idea and you want to create a version of it that users can use, and you can sort of get an idea of whether that idea makes sense, you build an MVP, which is like a very basic version of that idea, like the most basic version people can use, and will get them to the outcome that they desire, right? No code is the best, is the best platform to use, or the best approach to use if you're going to build an MVP very quickly. You might be at it for several months. You might be at it for 12 months, for 2 years. You are still building. You haven't finished building, right? But if you build with no code, if you build with Bubble or Webflow, or you use Zapier, in a couple of weeks, in fact, in a weekend, you can be done with your MVP, and users can start to, you can start to onboard users, and you can start to grow from there, right? So that's one use case for building, for using no code. Another is idea validation and testing. You have an idea, and instead of trying to wait to see, if this will work, and you start to look for developers and all of that, you just sit down, spend a weekend, and you just build it. You just build it out and launch, right? In the quickest possible time, you can validate your idea and get feedback from users. And then also, if you are unable to hire a developer, like in my case, which I'll talk about later, you have an idea, and because of one thing or the other, maybe you can't pay a developer at that time, right? you just simply learn how to use Bubble or whatever no-code tool you want to use, and you start building, right? And in a couple of weeks, you're done. So those are the best use cases for using no-code, right? But no-code doesn't work for all cases. There are cases where you actually need to hire a developer to build what you want to build. But then, more often than not, whatever you want to build is possible with no code. So you can get started with that. And then at some point in your build process, you can then hire a developer to build a real thing, right? But then there are also cases where people have built a whole startup and gotten funding even just using Bubble. So it's all possible with no code. A lot of things are possible. We have 5 minutes left before the meeting ends, and then we can rejoin again. But yeah, so just a little bit about how I got into no code, and then we can start looking at Bubble. So I got into no code because I had an IP developer. So I had to, so basically the idea I had, this is it by the rights, it's called Truly. It's a marketplace for fun seekers and also people who provide those fun activities. Think of it like Airbnb experiences, right? Where people who want to have fun, they want to go out and do something different, like maybe paintballing or kayaking or paint and sip. They want to go do something special during the weekend, and they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do, which vendor they should use, right? Truly would have a list of all of those vendors and the events that they have, and they can book for an event and then go for it. Right? That was the idea, but because I didn't know how to code, I had to use some hacks. I used Typeform, I used email, I had an Excel sheet, so I had some workarounds for it, but I wasn't satisfied with what the structure that I had. So at some point last year, around, let's say, August, I came across Bubble, and I started doing my research into it, started learning how to build my idea on Bubble. This is it. This is a screenshot of the home page on the right. I was able to build, all of those basic features for an MVP within 3 weeks, using Bubble. And that's what's possible, with code. You can have an idea and you can build it out in a matter of weeks. Right. So what can you build on Bubble? What is possible to build on Bubble? You can build a lot of tools, a lot of apps. Like I said, Bubble is the most sophisticated no-code tool right now. Maybe in the future there will be something else. Okay. Yeah, we're recording now. So I don't want to create a new app actually. So I'm going to use one of my existing apps for us to explore Bubble, right? Somebody wants to join the room. So if you're normally going to create a new app, you're going to start from it's loading. Let me just close some tabs so my browser is faster. But because Bubble is actually very browser memory intensive, so if your computer is slow, you might not really be able to enjoy the building process. Okay, I can't see a lot of things. All right, now if you're going to get started, you would click this button that says new app, and then you fill this form with some information about the app. If you're going to be using a template, you select from here, and then you create a new app, right? And then you're going to see an interface, a blank. Come on. We're going to see a blank interface. Basically, you're not going to see this. I built this page, while I was learning how to navigate my way with Bubble last year. So this is so I'm going to create a new page. Let's say, so we're going to call this use and tech. Right, so this is a fresh page on Bubble, and now you can see the interface. This is the UI for Bubble. Now it might look quite crude, and when you compare it with the interface with something like Webflow, this looks like something from the 80s, right? The Bubble team has been working on improving this UI, but this is what we have to work with, right? But even with this interface, you can do a lot, right? Now on the left are some visual elements that you can move to this canvas, right? This is a blank canvas that allows you to do pretty much anything. You can build anything from here, right? But these elements are things that you can move onto the canvas and modify in any way that you want to. So you have the text element, buttons, you have icons, you have all of these basic things, and then you have what are called containers, right? Containers allow you to put objects in them, right? Like they are called containers. So you can put text in them, you can put buttons, you can put all of those things in containers, right? So you have a group, you have repeating group, you have a pop-up, you have a floating group focus, right? Those are the basic containers on Bubble. And then you have input forms. So if you are creating a form that people would fill, they will put in some information, this is where you get those elements from the input forms, right? So you have different types here as well. Then you have reusable elements. So reusable elements are things that you're going to use over and over and over again in your app. For example, like your header, right? So let's say, okay, so Bubble has some default headers that it comes with. So I'm just going to click on this, select this, right? So this is the default header that comes with. Okay, let me check out the width. So let's say 960. No, we're not going to use these dimensions. Say 960. All right. Okay, this is a header, for example, right? Like if you go to any website, any web app or website, you find a header that allows users to navigate from one page to the other. Like it has an about us, a home page, things like that. That's a header. So an header is an element that you're going to use all over, on different pages, right? So it's called a reusable element, and you need to create a couple of reusable elements when you're building a Bubble. The same thing goes with the footer. Is also something you're going to use a lot. So in your process of building, you will need to create usable elements that you use over and over again, right? So that's just an overview of some of the elements here. This is the responsive tab that allows you to be able to build things responsively, right? You want it, whatever you're building, to be able to be visible on any type of device, whether it's a laptop, a tablet, or a mobile phone, right? So on this interface right here is where you'll be able to check for those, and also set, modify your responsive settings, basically. So that's really just one part of Bubble, which is the design. This is where we are, the design area. Now, when you come down here, you have the workflow. Right? The workflow is basically the parts that connect everything together, right? So for example, when a user clicks a button, you want them to be able to do something, you want something to happen, right? This is where you dictate for all of those things to happen, right? On the workflow tab. So think of, like I mentioned earlier, when you're building with no code, you have to think in terms of logic and conditionals and, conditional statements, basically. Like if this happens, that should happen, right? If a user clicks this button, take them to this page or log them out or whatever. So this is where most of that kind of coding occurs. This is where you tell Bubble that, I want the user to be able to, do this or do that. Now, the data section is also a very important aspect. In fact, this is like the most important aspect left to me. This is where you need to start out from most of the time if you're going to build on Bubble, right? You need to dictate how you want to structure your data, right? Now, how do I explain data? Now, if you want to build Facebook, for example, right? What do you think are the elements, or what are the things that are important for you when you're building Facebook, right? I want some feedback from everyone listening. I don't want to keep talking to myself. If you want to build Facebook, what are the things you need to think about?
Maybe a form.
A
A
form.
form, a database where we can fill in your name, your first name,
Yeah.
your telephone number, your
Yeah.
email, your picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Your profile picture, your address, things like that, your information as a user, right? And like pretty much everybody would fill that same form to be a Facebook user, right? In order, because you need to interact with other users and you need to have all of those information. Now that is, it's a lot more than that, but that's like foundational to how you approach building on Bubble. You've got to think of what data do you need in order to be able to make this app work, right? Now, for example, let's say we wanted to build Facebook. Let me stick with my Facebook idea, right? Think of all of the features of Facebook, right? On Facebook, you have posts, you have users, you have comments. What else do you have on Facebook?
Maybe likes and share.
Yeah, likes, shares, you have story, you have all of those things. Now, each of these things, right, they are what's, in Bubble, they are called data types, right? Now, a user is a data type that comes with every Bubble app, right? Now, you can see down here below, user. Now, if I create a new app right now, it's going to come with this data type called user, because every app, it is assumed that every app that you want to build will require users, right? And those users would need to have an email address, right? So when I click the user tab, the user data type here, you can see that the email option is already default, right? I don't need to create it. It's already came with Bubble, because if a user is going to access your app, they need to access it, most often via an email. So that's why that is like default. Then you have the modified dates, maybe a date, the day that and information about that user is modified, then the created dates, the dates that user was created on the platform, and then its log, which I'll talk about later. I don't want to, overload us with information, right? But those are the basic things that come with the user data type, right? Now, if you want to capture more information, for example, if you want to build a Facebook, right? You need people's first name, last name, you need their profile picture, you need their address, you need all of those things. Now, this is where you're going to put all of the information that a user would need to submit in order to sign up as a user, right? Are the things that this will be fields. Now, these things that you see here, name, photo, type, these are called fields, right? So think of fields as the things that are in a data type, right? Now, if a user is the data type, the different parts of it are called fields, right? So like all the things I mentioned, address, location, interest, all of those things are fields in the user data type, right? So when you want to create a new a new field, you click this button down below, right? And you name your field. So for example, I want to collect the user's address, right? Now, when you now click this drop down, you will see a list of options. So Bob is asking what type of field is this, right? Is it the text? Is it the number? Is it the numeric range? Is it the date, right? How do you decide which one is best? Which one is appropriate for the field that you're creating? It depends. So it depends on the type of how do I say it? It depends on the type of data it is, right? Because an address is text, right? I'm going to just select text. But if it was a number, if it was like, I wanted to get price, for example, like if this was a marketplace app and I wanted to create a data field, a field for price, right? That would be a number because, you know, price is it's not text, it's a number, right? If I wanted to create a task, a task tracker, for example, like a Trello or Todoist, right? And I wanted people to be able to set a due date for their tasks. I will use dates. You know, I will type in here due date, and I would select date, right? But in this case, we want a text-based field, so we're going to select text, right? So this is it, it appeared right here. Is everyone following me? Am I making sense?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. So that's basically you know, data types and fields, right? Now let me just, I'm thinking I should create a new app. I'm not sure we have that much time. So for example, let's say we wanted to create a Facebook, right? Now that's a pretty complicated app, but I'm going to try my best. I was going to do another type of app for this session, but you know, since Facebook just came, I don't know why, but since Facebook just came. So let's say would need address, name. So let's say this is first, let's call this first name, text. Let's create a field for last name. Also text. Let's profile, photo. Let's delete this user type. I'm not sure if I will have any errors. Okay. Okay. What else do we need? What else do we need? What else do we need when a user signs up? Okay, let's say those are basically the things that we need, right? So, but then a user would create posts, right? So we're going to create a new data type called posts, right? This is where you create your new data types, just down here below, right? So when you think about a post as a data type, what are the things that are in a post? So in a post, you have the content, right? When you're writing a post, you are writing some text, right? Like, oh, like I went to the market today and I saw a man, and you know how people write stuff on Facebook. So you need content or text, you know, whatever you want to call it, but I'll call it content, right? What else do you need on a post? You need, a post usually has comments, right? But we will not write comment. We can write comment here, right? And say text, but that would be the wrong approach. Why? Because comment itself is supposed to be a data type, right? So what we'll do is to come here, create a data type called comment, right? And what else do, let's think of all the things that we need to create or to actually use Facebook. So there are posts, there are comments. What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? I think that let's run with that basically. We're not building a full-fledged Facebook, we're just building something simple. So let's go back to posts, right? Now, a post will have multiple comments, right? I mean, comments from different users. So we'll come here and we'll select the comment data type, right? We're not selecting text this time around because well, a comment is much more than just, we have 10 minutes left. A comment is much more than just text. It is a data type of itself. So we're going to now, okay, yeah. I think at this point, I need to talk about how you need to think of relationships between data types. So if you're structuring your your data section on Bubble, you've got to think of how do the different data types relate to one another, right? How does comments relate to posts? How does posts relate to users? How do these things connect to each other, right? Because when a user logs in or signs up and creates an account on Facebook and they hit the create post button, that user is connected to a post, right? And then when they see an existing post that another user has created, they can leave a comment, right? So that means users are also connected to comments, right? And then there's also a way that posts are connected to comments. So it's a bit confusing, I know, but it's not something that you can quickly get. Sometimes, even as an intermediate Bubble user myself, I can get confused sometimes and I have to think about it very carefully to make sense of it, right? But basically, you've got to also think about how to connect data types between each other, right? So because one post will have multiple comments, we're going to select this option here to say this field is a list, right? Is a list of multiple comments in one post, right? So you can see it's comments, list of comments. What else? We're not going to talk about likes and all of those things right now. So let's go to comments. So let's comments too as well. I mean, you can see by default, Bubble has created some fields in this data type. You have creator, which is a user. Then you have modified data, all of these things. Now we're going to create a data field called content, which is going to be text, right? So the comment will have its own content as well, which is type text. Let's go back to the user data type. Under user, now I said users are connected to comments and posts, right? So I'm going to say posts. So a user can create posts. So, right? So one user can have a list of posts. One user as well can have a list of comments. So I'm going to also select the existing data field or data type rather called comments. We're going to hit create. Right, so that's basically it. Right, I mean, if we need to make any modifications, we can come back and modify some things, but that's it, right? Now let's go back to the, oh, I have two people. Admit. All right, let's come back here. Are you still with me? Is everyone still with me? I just want to be
Yes,
sure.
we are.
Okay, perfect,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay, so I'm going to come right over here to the top and make some modifications so that I can, I mean, these are like best practices when you're building on Bubble in the design section, right? You want to come here and modify some things, like you want to show your grid, for example, so you can, I don't like this color. Okay, yeah, that should work. Okay, then should want to show horizontal lines, want to show gutters. I don't think I want gutters. Snap with edges. Okay. Okay, right. So this works. So let's say we want to create a login sign up functionality. Let's start with that, right? So for your Facebook clone, you want users to be able to sign up as new users. And if they're an existing user, you want them to be able to log in. How do you do that, right? So let's say we create a header. I want to create a different header. I don't want to use. So I'm going to come here to the left and come to the group, right? Because you're going to use groups a lot when you're building on Bubble. Just drag it out. So let's drag it to the full width of our page. So like I said, you've got to be able to know how to use these three sections on Bubble: the design, the workflow, and the data tab. Sorry, my network again. Can you hear me? Can you see me? I've got to share my screen again.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Glory, but could you share access so that I can share my screen so we can continue?
Sorry about that.
No problems. Thank you. So I'm looking at rounding this up in about 30 minutes. So I've got to move fast. Okay, I'll just pause the record, just recording. Okay, I'm recording again. Thank you for that reminder. So this is just a group, right? So like I said, if you need to put any visual element on the page, it's best to put them all in a group, right? So let's drag a button. Let's call this would be pretty rudimentary, nothing sophisticated in terms of design, just for learning purposes. But ideally your let's say this is size 40. So yeah, okay. Let me talk about the Bubble, this editor interface. So when you click on an element here on the canvas, right? Or basically when you click on an element, you are presented with this interface that you can use to make modifications on that element, right? So for example, a button, you can adjust the text in the button, right? From here, right? So I want this button to say sign up. You can, clicking this button will allow you to be able to start a workflow, right? So for example, right? So clicking that button brought me here, but I don't want to get here yet. So let's go back, right? And then also you can as well decide if you want that element to be visible on the page, on page load. That's when the page is loaded. Do you want it to be visible or not, right? That's what this feature is. And then do you want this to be a fixed width element or not, right? That's what this is, basically a responsive feature, right? And then this determines the width and height of the elements. So like I was saying, these are basically some settings you make on the elements that you're actively working on the canvas. So we have this login button and the sign up button. What else do we need? So let's say we want to create some type of logo here. Says Facebook. I'm just going to. All right. So let's say that's borders, border. So, okay. So let's say this is header, right? Now let's also create an input. So first name. So this is an input element, right here. I just dragged it to the canvas and I am modifying its content. So I want to create an input element for first name. Basically the elements that, the fields that we created in the user interface, the user data type, last name. So you can duplicate, instead of dragging a new input element every time, you can just duplicate it by pressing down the control button and dragging. Email address. I'm busy, please. So also maybe address. I don't know what else we miss. We have profile picture. Yeah. So far, we're not going to use an input element. We're going to use something called the picture uploader. That's the type of input element we're going to use. So let's say we drop that here. Right. So yeah, basically this is what the user feels. Okay, so now we want to create conditions for these buttons. We want something to happen when a user clicks on the login button and the sign up button. Now for the sign up button, we want to log the user in with their email address and password, right? So let's say we create a pop-up for that. So we come here, select pop-up. Now the pop-up element is slightly different from the rest in that it appears, how a pop-up is, it's just, it shows up different from the other elements on the page. It's like an element that stands above all the other elements, right? So we're going to call this sign up on Facebook. So we're going to, I want to, make some, style it a little bit. So what do we need for user to sign up? We need their email address and password. So we'll just create. Okay. So email address. So we're going to now, if you are collecting an email address from users, you want to tell Bubble that, this is the content type, the content format I'm expecting is an email, so that Bubble can automatically detect when it is not an email and, let the user modify what they've typed. So we're going to select email here as a content type. Well, if it's just ordinary text, it is fine to leave it as default, which is text. So let's duplicate this. I'll call it password. Right. And then let's put a button. Let's say sign up. Right? And let's call this pop-up sign up. Sign up. Now let's create a similar pop-up for logging in. Okay, let me be sure that I have. Okay, all right. So I've actually duplicated. So I've pasted several. So I just delete. Okay, so let's call this pop-up login. So what I basically did is I copied and pasted the first sign up pop-up I did. So pop-up login. This is for users who log into Facebook. I'm afraid we will just only be able to do this login functionality. I would have loved for us to do a lot more, but time. Okay, great. Okay, now, so what do we do next? We create workflows, right? That will determine what happens when users click any of these buttons. So when the user clicks sign up here, right? What do we want? We want the pop-up sign up to show up, right? So that the user can sign up, right? So let's do the workflow for that. So you click on the element, which is this button, and then you click on this button right here that says start edit workflow, which allows you to start a workflow for this element or to edit the workflow if you have an existing workflow. So click on that. Now you can see it says when button sign up is clicked, right? What do you want to happen, right? So there's an array of options that is possible, right? You can do all these various things, but what we want right now is to show. We want to show the pop-up, right? So we come here down to element actions and say show, right? And then we select the element we want, which is this pop-up sign up. Right, so let's preview that. So when you're building on Bubble, there's a feature called preview, which allows you to see what you're doing, step by step. So we're going to click this preview, which basically shows all the elements that we have on our existing page that is visible. Right, so you can see on the front, right, when they go to our Facebook, right, they see all of the elements that we just created. So let's test out what we just did right now, right, which is this. So I'm going to click sign up. Now you can see the pop-up, right? Now, we're not done yet. This is just step one out of several. Let's go back. I'm trying to navigate back to the other tab. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we've been able to show that. Let's do the same thing for our login. This is the cleanest way to do this, but it's just a quick way to show what's possible. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to show our pop-up login, right? Now, fine, we're going to show those pop-ups, but when a user fills the pop-up, for example, when a user now then fills their email address and password, right? We want them to finally click this button and get signed up. So we're going to create a workflow as well on this sign up button, right? So we're going to click that, and you can see when button sign up is clicked, there's a preview of the button. We're going to then say, we're going to come in and say, sign the user up. So it's just one quick way to sign a user up. Now, if you're going to do this with traditional coding, this is going to take hours to be able to create a sign up or sign or login workflow, but it's really quick with on Bubble. So I'm just going to say, sign the user up. Now, Bubble asks, what are the things you want to use to sign the user up, right? Now we have to go back to our pop-up and we have to name the elements. That's also one of the key things that is important. So input email address, sign up. Let's name the element so that we can reference it later. Password, sign up. It's really important when you're building on Bubble that you label your elements. Let's do the same thing. Input email address, login, and then input address, input password. All right, great. So let's come back here to the workflow section. So user sign up after they fill their email address. We want to sign the user up. And what do we need to sign the user up? We need the email is where on that input. So we just type implement, right? And we want what's the value, right? So we want the content of that input element. And that is what the user has typed into that input element called input email address sign up, right? So that's what Bubble will accept as the password. Let me go back and make a quick modification. I'm going to tell Bubble this is a password that you should be expecting. Same thing here. This is email, should be password. Okay, so we need passwords value, that element value, right? So these are other things, whether you want it to be mandatory to require password confirmation, you take this element, you take this, all of these are not really necessary at this point. Let's do the same thing for login. Do a workflow for that. Right, so we're going to come here and say log the user in, right? That's what we want to do. So let's impute image login value, impute. So you can see instead of me searching for, I already know the name of the element that I want to refer to. So I just type that in. So yeah, let's do one last thing, which is to show the email address of the current user. Let's say current users email, right? That's what we want displayed here. It's a dynamic text that will display here, which is whichever user is logged in, their email address will show here. So let's test out what we just did. We're going to reload this our preview page again. Are you still with me?
Yes, we are.
Yes,
Okay.
we are.
Okay, great. Okay, well, soon going to round up and just refreshing this page. My internet is a bit slow, that's why. Internet. So we're just going to see all of the settings that we just did. We're going to, see it displayed. So let's sign up as a new user, right? So I'm going to click the sign up button. So we have our pop-up sign up, right? So let's say I'm using, this email address, email.com, and let's say my password 1, 2, 3. Let's say that's my password, 1, 2, 3, right? So I'm going to click sign up. Okay. Okay, so I was supposed to, okay, let me go back to the app. I want to do something else here, which is when a user has clicked the sign up button, right? And they are signed up. I want to hide the pop-up, right? So that makes sense in terms of user experience. The same thing. Okay, I want to be sure of the buttons. I don't want to. Okay, yeah. I'm right. So when the user is logged in, I also want to hide the pop-up login. Right, so let's go back, quickly refresh this and try that again.
See your screen.
Oh, wow. Okay, sorry about that. Let me keep that another. Oh, wow. Skip my mind. Okay, so what I just basically did was to, what I just did now was to, because my screen wasn't showing, I created a workflow to hide the pop-ups, both pop-up login and sign up when the user, is done. When they've performed, when they are signed up, the pop-up should be hidden, right? So let's give it a try again. Let's sign me up. 1, 2, 3. So sign up, right? Yeah. So I'm signed up now as a user on this application, right? And you can see my email address displayed here, toby@email.com, right? So I didn't create a functionality to log out. Okay, let's go back and quickly do that. So I can log out and then log in again, right? So let's just move this over here and duplicate this button. So let's call this logout. So a way to log out the user, let's edit the workflow for that. So when want to log the user out. So it's just an option on Bubble. I'm sorry, my screen. It's really awkward trying to. Okay. So as you make modifications on Bubble, and then you've got to refresh your page every time you want to test and see. So I'm currently logged in as toby@email.com. Now I'm going to log out. Now I'm logged out. So you can see that dynamic text that shows the email address of the currently logged in user is not visible anymore, right? Now let me log in now. So I'm already an existing user on the platform and I want to get back into my account using the same details I used to log in. So log in. So I'm logged in again, right? So I can then log out. So that is basically the login, logout, sign up feature. Basically, it's that simple, right? It might be, there's a lot more moving parts to it, but basically that is it. Now, so a user is logged in and we want them to, complete their details. We want them to fill what their first name, last name is. We want them to also fill in their address and also upload a profile picture, right? So that is what this form down below is. But there's something missing there, right? Which is like a button to say update profile. So we're going to just say update profile. Right? So what this button does is just, it's all of the information that we didn't get from the user when they signed up. We can, get all of this information after they are logged in or after they are signed up. So right here, we want the user's email address to be displayed. So we're going to just say, instead of having the user type their email address again, we're going to say current user's email. Right? We want that to be displayed here already. Right? So the user just fills up all of these other things. So now we have to set a workflow for this button. Right? That is after a user has filled in all this information, we want Bubble to collect all of that information and store it for this user. So we're going to start a workflow for this button. So when button update profile is clicked, that's our new button. We want to do something, which is want to make changes. Now, it takes a while to understand all of these options, right? You've got to really understand, what do these things mean, right? In what situations can I use them? But in this context right now, we want to make changes to a thing, and that thing is the current user. That's why we're selecting this option. So we're going to say the thing to change is our current user. And what do we want to change there? Right? We want their first name. We want to use first name, input first name's value. That is this element, right? We want the value to be whatever the user has typed here to be what should be registered as the user's first name. Last name, input last name's value, right? Address, input address value. What else? Profile picture. Picture uploader. Right? That is this this one right here. Let's call it profile pic. Right, so we have everything. We don't need to update the user's email because although if they want to change their email, okay, let's say we can also update input email address. Let's call it update. So we want to also capture the users, maybe if they are changing their email address. Oh, we can actually modify that. Okay, let's keep that then, because that's already determined by when we signed up. So let's just leave that. Okay, so okay, let's do something. Let's do something so we can just have a confirmation that all of this information is correct. So I'll just drag. No, let me drag a group here. I'll call it group user info. This is all pretty rough. I just want to show us, let's give it a border, solid border, right? Okay, great. So we want the user's first name to be displayed first, current user's first name. So that's going to show up here first. So I just want to do what's possible after we've completed the form. Current users last, current users address. What else? And then let's see, we want to also display. So to display an image, we're going to use this element called image. So it's for displaying images. So we're going to want to display current users profile photo. Right? So you have to pick the element that is right for the kind of element, the type of data you want to display. So I think that's it really. Okay, let's go test and see that what we've done is correct. So we're going to reload the page again. Yeah, so because we haven't filled all of these things, this is empty. So let's do that. So let's say Toby Benisola, last name, 3 Lekki Road, Lagos, right? So once I click update profile, let's upload an image, an image on this computer. Just looking for an image I can use. This is not my computer, by the way, so just looking for an image that makes sense. Okay, let me just look for something. I don't know what this is, but maybe it will work. So it's currently uploading my image. Okay, let's say that's my profile image, right? So click update profile. So you can see the data I just entered right here is being displayed, right? That it belongs to this user. So this is the profile image. This is the first name, this is the last name, just like how we configured it here, right? So that is, I mean, I think I would stop here, but that is basically, showing what's possible with Bubble. So we basically covered logging in, signing up, logging out, and also completing, like receiving some data. So really that is where I will stop. Maybe we can have another session and we can delve more into more things and look at more features, more things that you can do. But yeah, we have 10 minutes again before the meeting ends. But I wanted to get feedback from everyone. Do you have any questions? Do you have any comments? I'd like to hear what you think.
Okay, question from my end. This has been very informative, and I just like to find out, maybe you're done with everything. How do you publish, if that's the right word?
Okay.
Yes.
So by publish, do you mean like having a domain, like having a complete product? Okay.
Yeah.
So there are different things. First of all, you need to buy a domain. You need to buy a domain from maybe Google or GoDaddy, any of those domain providers. And you've got to now come to your settings and do a couple of things. So you do all of those things are possible from your settings. However, you cannot publish your app to a live version that, for example, I built this platform called Job Launch. When I started building it, it was purely, just a pay app. And then I, set up the domain and all of those things. And, now it's an app that can type in their, type in the URL in the domain and that will come up, right? But this is not possible unless you have a paid plan with Bubble, right? If you're using a free plan, it's not possible. So you've got to first of all pay for, so there are different plans. There's personal, professional, production, free. So I'm currently using a free plan. So you can't really do a lot of things with a free plan. You can only just test what you are doing. But in order to push it to live production for real users to start to use the app, you've got to first of all update your plan to a paid one. And then you now come to, there's some, right here. So you set up your domain, you put it domain, all of those settings are things that you just do right here. So once you've bought your domain and you've all done some settings to it, and you compute everything right here, you're good. You know, your app will then become whatever it is .com, whatever the domain is .com or .ng. So that's how you take it to live, and then you know you can start to have real users start to use your app. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Do we have any other questions? Anyone else?
Yes, so I have a question.
Just so we
Sorry?
can read it out. Sorry about that, Toby. I was saying if they can't say it, I mean the questions,
Okay.
they can drop it in the chat box. Maybe we can
Yes,
read it
yes.
out or something.
Yes, absolutely. You can also drop your questions in the chat box. I would read it out and answer it. So Prince, you wanted to ask a question?
Yes, I have a question. So is there a way to translate already existing interfaces, say from Figma or Adobe XD onto Bubble, and then build it as you know, a website or an application? That's my question.
Yes, yes. So Bubble has a feature that allows you to export Figma designs to Bubble. I don't know about Adobe XD, but I know about Figma, where you can design your UI on Figma and then transport as it is, you know, migrate it to Bubble. So it's going to show up just as you designed it, although there may be some slight changes to it, you know, because of transferring data from one platform to the other. But you then need to now make those modifications on Bubble just to make things go back to the way they were on Figma. But it's possible with from Figma to Bubble. Yeah, so it's possible. There's a way to go about it, but I can't explore that right now. But yes, there's a way. I think using maybe a plugin or some, you know, approach, but yeah, it's possible.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks. Then
Right.
I want to ask another question.
Mm-hmm.
So apart from websites, Bubble can also be used to make applications, right? Like apps.
Yes, mobile applications, native mobile applications. However, Bubble is not the best tool to use. There is Glide, there's Adalo, right? But those apps are limited. Maybe you want to build a very complicated app, you still need to come back to using Bubble. So what you would do, if you want to create an app that you would then, you know, upload to the Play Store or to the Apple App Store, right? You use what is called a wrapper, right? There's a popular one called BDK Native. You can do your research on it. That allows you to wrap the application you built on Bubble. It allows you to wrap it into a mobile app that you can then upload to any, you know, app store that users will then download, and then, you know, they can sign up and do all of those things. So it's possible to with Bubble, but there are other apps that are, I mean, the other no-code tools that are best to build stuff. But if those no-code tools cannot do what you want to do, you have to then, you know, use Bubble and then use that plugin to be able to make it a mobile native app, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Does anyone else have any other question before we round up? Okay, I'll take that as a no. So this has been a really great session. I mean, Bubble is a really fantastic tool. I will enjoy everyone here to like really look into it, because it's real. I mean, the no-code space is growing every year, and more companies are getting into it, and it would get to a point where people are, you know, creating careers out of it. Like I've been seeing a growth in the number of no-code or Bubble developments and related jobs, you know, the rise. So you would want to like really look into it and, you know, get an expertise into it, or even if you have an idea, like you have a startup idea, or you figure that is a need that, you know, a kind of app that should do something, and you believe that you can build it, you can do that on Bubble. So, okay, we have someone raising their hand. Mercy's raising her hand.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, in creating the workflow, say for example, for an element, is it possible for an element to have more than one workflow? Because I noticed you just created one workflow for each of them.
Yes, it's absolutely possible. So if, for example, you want user who is logged in to be able to do something when they click on that same button. You can create a condition for it, right? So for example, maybe this button, we already have a workflow that when the button is clicked, make changes to the user. Now we can say that we can also create a workflow that when this button is clicked and the current user, for example, we can do this copy, we can then paste it, and we can then say, this is only possible. Okay, this is the first one. This is the one we made. This is a copy of it, right? So now let's say for this, now you can see it's the same element, right? But we have two workflows. Now we can create a condition that when this button is clicked and the current user is logged in, right? We want this to be possible. But if the current user is logged out, right? When the user is logged out, maybe we want this element to not be clickable. Or maybe we want to log the user out, for example, right? That's another workflow. Let's say we want to log the user out rather log the user in. We're almost out of time. I think let's join back again and then I can answer any other questions. We have less than 1 minute right now.
Okay.
All right, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. So let me leave. Yes, just go on.
Okay, so let me recap. I would like to recap my question. So number one, Bubble is not so popular here in Africa, Nigeria, Africa, although few people are getting to know Bubble. However, the few people that are building their applications through Bubble, they haven't gotten the UI UX right. I don't know if you understand what I mean. Like it still looks like let's say it's not like it can compete globally. Do you understand what I mean? So is there anything that can be done about that? And for the few people who would like to learn how to use Bubble, how can they monetize their skills? That's my question.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I would say that yes, it's true that Bubble isn't quite popular here in Africa or Nigeria as it is in the West. It's like I said, it's the no-code space generally is still growing. Year after year, more and more people are getting into it. So yes, and then also, there's also the limitation that it's because it is no code, you can't quite do a lot of things that is possible, when a developer actually codes everything from scratch. So it's a little bit of a workaround, if I'm being honest. So there might be a little bit of differences in terms of user experience from an app built with code and an app built without code. That limitation is there. However, there are apps, I can tell you for free that there are apps that are really good, that are also built with Bubble, that are built by Africans, right? I can't pinpoint to anyone exactly, but I would say, for example, like the app that I built, I can boast about this app anywhere, right? That I built it without writing code, and it is really clean, right? So this is weird. Why is my app appearing like this? But it's possible to build something nice and beautiful, on Bubble. I need to check this out. Actually, this is weird, but it's actually possible to build something nice on Bubble. Or if you want to do something beautiful, like I said, you can use Webflow for your front end and then use Bubble for your back end, right? Like the home page and about us page, all of those general interfaces that people would use without logging in into your app. You can build those things with Webflow and really beautiful interfaces. And then in the app itself, you can use Bubble to do that. You don't have, all of those things don't have to be pretty and aesthetically pleasing. But over time, Bubble is also going to introduce some features that will allow you to build really beautiful apps. And then about monetizing your skill as a bubbler, yes, There are people who want to build stuff. They don't want to use developers like coders, right? They want to use no code because of how quickly it scales and how quickly you can build with it, right? And they don't want to build it themselves. So they look for, developers, bubble developers, no code developers to do that for them. And they are everywhere. They are on LinkedIn, they are on gig marketplaces like Upwork, like Fiverr, like freelancer.com. There are already no code related jobs on those platforms that you can get hired for and paid, as a bubble developer. You can also even work in a company, maybe not a Nigerian company right now, maybe a company in the US or in Europe, and be a bubble developer on their team, right? So that is where things are going generally, where you have more of those kind of scenarios. But right now, those are the opportunities that are available. And then there are also no-code agencies that, they are like traditional, agencies, code agencies that they have developers. So in this case, they have no-code developers working on the team, and they have product managers. They have all of that structure. And so startup founders that want to build something, will come to those no-code agencies, and they will scope out what they need to do. And then you as a bubble developer on the team would work with them to achieve what they want to do, and you get paid for it. So those are the monetizing or financial opportunities as a bubble developer or no-code developer. So I believe I've been able to answer that question. I don't know if there are any other questions while we round up. Okay, I think there are no other questions. So this has been a great session. I apologize again for the technical issues at the start of our session. Maybe if we meet again, all of these issues would not definitely not arise. But it's been a pleasure running through this with everyone. I don't know if Glory has something to say.
No, I don't have anything to say. It has really been a very educating one. Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. So thank you everyone for joining our session, this session. My name is Toby Misola again. If you want to reach me, I'm on LinkedIn. You can send me a message on LinkedIn. We can connect. If you have any more questions, you can talk to me there, and we can take things forward. It was great running through this session with everyone. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.